1,000 American soldiers are packing up right now, loading gear, boarding transport aircraft, leaving positions the U.S. held for nearly a decade. Washington's new national security strategy claims the Middle East no longer justifies America's long-term military focus. But let me be absolutely clear. What you are witnessing is not strategy. It is retreat. A great power does not spend $8 trillion, lose thousands of troops, destabilize entire countries, and then simply walk away, declaring the region no longer a priority. That is not grand strategy. It is an admission of failure. I am John Mearsheimer, and Defensive Realism, the framework I developed, predicts exactly this. Great powers cannot dominate regions where they lack vital interests, and America never had true vital interests in the Middle East, only illusions of them. Those illusions have now collapsed, and while the U.S. steps back, Russia is stepping forward. Israel is alarmed. The Gulf states are hedging. Iran is expanding. You are watching the end of American hegemony in the Middle East. To understand how we reached this moment, we must examine the beliefs that guided Washington for 80 years. After 1945, U.S. strategy in the Middle East rested on three pillars: oil security, support for Israel, containment of the Soviet Union. These pillars justified massive deployments, bases, and interventions. And for decades, American policymakers convinced themselves of three illusions. Military presence equals control. Regional allies would remain permanently dependent. No rival could challenge U.S. influence. But history shifted, and three forces shattered this worldview. First, energy independence. The American shale boom transformed the U.S. into a net energy exporter. The original reason for deep Middle East involvement evaporated. Second, war fatigue. Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, $8 trillion, thousands of lives. And what did the United States gain? Nothing except new enemies and strategic exhaustion. Third, the China pivot. Washington concluded that East Asia, not the Middle East, is the primary arena of great power competition. Resources, attention, and priorities shifted accordingly. Offensive realism teaches a simple rule. Great powers focus where their primary rivals live. China threatens U.S. dominance. The Middle East does not. The rebalance was inevitable. But the execution, that is where the disaster begins. The catalyst was President Trump's directive, 1,000 U.S. troops out of Syria. The national security strategy formalized it. America announced openly that it no longer needs the region. Not reduced priority, not temporary drawdown, no longer needed. And the consequences were immediate. Israel saw its security guarantor pulling back. Russia prepared to expand its influence. Allies across the region felt blindsided and exposed. For Israel, this shift is existential. American backing has been the foundation of Israeli strategy for 70 years. That foundation is now unstable. For Russia, every American soldier leaving is an opening, a vacuum to fill, a new client to court. Trump's logic was not irrational. Reduce commitments in secondary regions and focus on China. But the execution? Catastrophic. This wasn't a measured transition. It was abandonment. This wasn't strategic rebalancing. It was sudden desertion. And the message to every ally was unmistakable. When Washington decides you're inconvenient, you're on your own. The Kurds learned this in blood. Israel feels it now. Taiwan is watching very closely. Washington's approach is collapsing for four reasons. 1. The vacuum problem. The U.S. left without securing any political settlement or security framework. Power vacuums do not remain empty. Russia and Iran move in immediately. 2. Ally abandonment. Israel wasn't consulted. Gulf states were uninformed. The Kurds, America's partners against ISIS, were left exposed. Future allies will remember this. 3. Empowering adversaries. Moscow gains regional credibility. Iran expands freely. Assad consolidates control. Every U.S. rival benefits instantly. 4. Global credibility damage. The world is watching. Taiwan, Japan, South Korea, nations dependent on American protection. If the U.S. abandons the Middle East after 80 years, what promises truly stand? Washington claims this is strategy. The region sees abandonment, and the region is right. Meanwhile, Russia executed a completely different playbook. Moscow practiced strategic patience. While the U.S. spent trillions on failed wars, Russia invested modestly but consistently, securing long-term bases at Tartus and Khmeimim, supporting Assad when the U.S. sought regime change, partnering with Iran, drawing Turkey closer as U.S.-Turkey relations worsened. Russia offered stability, America demanded concessions, and regional leaders made the logical calculation. Russia protects allies, America discards them. Here is the future, both immediate and long-term. Immediate consequences. Israel will act more independently, possibly preemptively. Gulf states will deepen ties with China and Russia. Iran will expand its regional network of power. The U.S. will lose influence rapidly. Long-term structural shift. Within the next decade, the Middle East will become a Russian-Chinese sphere of influence. 80 years of American dominance will dissolve, not because the U.S. was defeated militarily, but because it withdrew without strategy. And here is the realist lesson. Great powers that retreat without a plan accelerate their own decline. Power vacuums invite challengers. Overextended empires collapse through strategic fatigue, not battlefield losses. The reality is unavoidable. Russia understood time was on its side. Russia waited. Russia seized the opportunity. And America, after spending $8 trillion and 2 decades at war, has gained nothing. Not influence, not stability, not allies, not victory. The only thing the U.S. achieved was proving a brutal truth. If you refuse to learn from history, someone else will. Russia learned. Russia waited. Russia won. Washington insists it can withdraw militarily while somehow maintaining influence through diplomacy and partnerships. But this assumption is pure fantasy. Influence is not maintained by statements, conferences, or press releases. Influence is maintained by credible commitments, by a presence that allies can rely on and adversaries must respect. And right now, the United States offers neither. American officials argue that the Middle East can be managed remotely, but regional leaders see the truth. Power is shifting. Loyalties are shifting, and Washington no longer shapes the strategic environment. The U.S. hoped that local partners would carry out its goals even as American troops disappeared. But partners act according to incentives, not nostalgia. As soon as America pulled back, they adjusted instantly. Saudi Arabia opened channels with Iran through China. The UAE deepened military cooperation with Russia. Egypt welcomed Russian infrastructure and energy deals. Turkey aligned its Syria policy closer to Moscow. These moves were not symbolic. They were structural. They reflect a world where the U.S. no longer holds the center of gravity. America believed it could reduce its presence without reducing its power. History shows the opposite. When a hegemon retreats, power declines first, and credibility declines even faster. This is the cost of strategic incoherence, and it is playing out in real time. History does not measure decline in sudden collapses. It measures decline in choices. And America's choices are revealing its trajectory. Decline begins when a great power can no longer sustain commitments abroad. It deepens when allies lose confidence and seek alternative patrons. It becomes irreversible when rivals seize influence without resistance. All three conditions now exist. Russia does not need to surpass the United States economically or militarily to win the Middle East. It only needs to be the more reliable actor. And Moscow has proven, consistently, that it stands by its partners. China does not need military bases to gain power in the region. It only needs to control trade, technology, and infrastructure, and it is doing so at breathtaking speed. Meanwhile, the United States is trapped between its ambitions and its exhaustion. It wants global dominance, but cannot pay the cost. It wants loyal allies, but cannot provide the security they require. It wants to pivot to Asia while pretending the Middle East will remain stable on its own. These contradictions guarantee one outcome. The U.S. is losing influence faster than it realizes. The final question is not whether America leaves the Middle East. That decision has already been made. The real question is what replaces the order America once enforced. The answer is emerging now. A Russian-backed security architecture, a Chinese-led economic network, and an America that spent $8 trillion and 2 decades not to win, but to walk away. Great powers are not defeated by enemies. They are undone by their own illusions. Russia understood this. Russia waited. Russia adapted. And when the moment came, Russia acted. America did not. And that is how empires end. Not with collapse, but with choices that make collapse inevitable.